Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I said I had a cheesy opening, and
No, I was rocking.
I was into it.
I know you were rocking it.
Like TikTok, I was TikTok ready.
I know it was great. You know, I figured I'd have to do a cheesy opening for us and get this thing up and running. But you know, that might be a TikTok background now.
I'm all for that. I vote for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we gotta get Stephanie on there. So
He's scared.
Come on. Yeah. So welcome everybody to the first of, I hope, a few historians off the clock. It all depends on how much you all love seeing us talk about all kinds of things. And thank you for tuning in over on Facebook, YouTube, and I know that Megan and Stephanie are making their Twitch debut tonight. So welcome to Twitch, ladies.
I don't know about Stephanie, but I'm anticipating just worldwide stardom.
Me too.
I mean, it all starts with Twitch.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, I'm ready.
We're gonna build our base. We're gonna be, Stephanie. We're gonna be like those twins at Baylor. Did you read that article?
Yes.
We're gonna be like them.
Yes.
Slightly older, and not twins, but we will. We'll make YouTube videos and have giant audiences and deal with people.
I'm fine with that. My goal is to take Ice Road Truckers and Ancient Aliens off the History Channel, and so what we need to do is just get our own show and do real history.
Yes. I'm into that. Yeah, I might have to note in.
People though, because I'm from the deep south and I have a soft spot for swamp alligators and swamp people.
I mean, we could do a special. We could do a special episode.
Yeah.
Alligators.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be totally down with that.
You do some swamp.
I've heard about swamps before. Totally.
Yeah. We'll work around it. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Thank you all again for tuning in. There's 35 of you around talking already in the comment section, so that's awesome.
Wow. Hi.
So, fantastic.
Worldwide stardom, Stephanie. Here it comes.
Already starting, Megan. Already starting. So tonight, for everyone, we have two returning people to the live stream. We have Dr. Megan Kate Nelson, author of The Three-Cornered War, The Union of the Confederacy, Native Peoples in the Fight for the Far West. And we also have the newly minted Dr. Stephanie Ann Steele Walters.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, give it up.
Doctor!
How's it feel? How's it feel to be done?
I don't know. I really don't know because so it feels good, but I expected to have this immediate collapse where 20 minutes after I defended that I was going to go take a nap. I didn't sleep for 2 days, ma'am, because I was so because the defense went. I knew it was going to go okay, but it went way better than I anticipated. It was actually fun. I didn't think defense would be fun. It was great to be able to talk about it. So as soon as it ended, I was on a high that lasted for 2 days. Although I told my husband, I was like, I feel strange because now that I have this huge weight lifted off my shoulders, I'm starting to feel emotions again. I can feel I didn't know how emotionally unavailable I was when I put over my head. I was I feel like the ice queen. I'm like, what is this wet stuff? I have emotions. Yeah,
yourself just randomly crying. You'll be watching a commercial and be like,
this is what it's like to feel again. I forgot. But yeah, so that's John, how many times have I been on one of your things? 50,000 at this point?
I think this is the fifth time we have worked together on a podcast or a live stream or we did the live event at the Gary Owen.
Yeah, so that's
I think it's 5. I think we're up to 5.
So your people who come back and have seen me before, they'll understand why I put doctor in all caps, because every single time I came on one of your shows, I'd be I'm graduating this semester. Wait, no, I'm graduating this semester. Wait, no. So it finally happened. So I'm not being obnoxious. I'm celebrating.
No, you have every right. You have every right.
You should.
Yeah. I mean, someday mine's going to be the tattoo historian is finally in Ontario. So, so that might be in all caps.
In all caps, it'll be the tattooed historian in Canada.
Yes. That'd be it.
Yeah.
I did want to. Before we get underway, I do want to. Give our best to Dr. Angela Raido, who was going to join us this evening, but friends of hers, and we know them as well, had a medical emergency, and she was going to go watch their children while they're taking care of that. So that's why she is not with us this evening, but we'll make sure we get her on something in the future. So, Megan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
I can't remember.
Oh, okay, we'll just move on.
Come on, Don. These days, I can't remember anything from 1 minute to the next. Like, it's just, I'm like, what day is it? What year? I mean, I don't really know. It's just a blur. It's a blur.
I can understand that. Understand that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And with the things that Stephanie dealt with the doctoral, the end of the doctoral run, and the things that I'm dealing with trying to get to my doctoral run, there are a lot of things where I'm like, wow, it's September already.
Oh,
I can't believe it.
When that happened, I was like, what?
Yeah.
It felt like August lasted forever.
It did.
It felt like August was a year. But yeah, then it turned into September, and I was like, what just happened? This is not good.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to get on some things. Let's go.
Since Stephanie just completed her long and arduous, rewarding journey, what was that like for you, Megan? For that part?
God, let me try to remember. So that was so long ago. Definitely in the days before like widespread internet use. Certainly, well, yeah, definitely pre-Facebook for me. That was like 2002. I went to the University of Iowa in American Studies, and I did my coursework for 3 years, and then I left Iowa City. So my husband Dan and I got married. He was in Boston, so I moved to Boston. So I wrote my entire dissertation like away from campus. And this was now see, you're gonna laugh. This is how old I am. Youngster.
Sorry.
No one knew how to attach things to emails. So, certainly not professors. So right. When I wrote chapters, I mailed paper copies.
Ooh.
And then they mailed back comments in handwriting.
Wow.
So that was hideous.
Yeah.
But I was able, I mean, luckily I had like 1 year of funding when I was writing, and then I taught, I TA'd at Harvard I TA'd a class in baseball in America. What did I know about baseball before that? Nothing. What did I know after?
A lot, yeah.
Yes, I had one section that was entirely dudes. It was just me and a bunch of dudes. I was like, oh, this is interesting. But yeah, so I wrote the dissertation. I did okay though. It was I was able to be disciplined, which is kind of amazing when you don't have that kind of either camaraderie of all of your fellow cohort being there or kind of external pressure. There were none of these, obviously we didn't have Twitter. There was no online community. So I just kind of researched until I felt like I was ready to write a chapter, and then I did it.
Wow.
And then once I pushed off my defense, I think maybe once or twice, and then flew out to Iowa and defended, which, ended up being great, but it was still that was I don't know how usual that experience is. Actually, that would be interesting to take a poll and see how many of PhD students are like in residence the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're kind of moving around, or even like taking jobs before they're done, or like whatever they are doing. But ultimately, I only had I don't know about you, Stephanie, but I had one kind of really dark day of the soul where for some reason I had a printout of half of the dissertation, and I put it in a tote bag and I threw it out into the hallway. We were in an apartment complex. And I threw it out into the hallway with see, again, this is how old I am, with a quarter in the hopes that it would run away. And a quarter was it for it to call if it had any issues.
Yeah.
Like Dan came home and was like, "What's happening?" Because he saw like the tote bag outside, and I was like, "I have just shoved the dissertation out the door. I would like it to leave. I would like it to run away and never come back." And he's like, "Why don't we go to dinner?" And I'm like, "Well, here."
Food always fixes my issues too. Yeah. Just feed me and I'll get better.
Go get some Tex-Mex and some margaritas and come back and see if it's there when we return. And hilariously, you know how like if you like leave stuff outside of in a thing, like usually it's gone.
Right.
No one touched that. No one touched that.
No.
Nobody wanted your dissertation.
Nobody wanted that dissertation left outside. So I took it outside.
There were many times that I just, because I genuinely still love because I'm still with it. Love my topic, but there were many times I was like, wait, I used to not understand why the ABD versus PhD statistic was so drastic, like why there were way more ABDs than PhDs until I got into the writing process. And I was like, wait, what did the ABDs know that I didn't? Like, like I was like, I understand now. Like I get it. And I remember when I was a master's student, I guess I was being super judgy because I would sit and I would see people who were still in my program who'd been in the PhD program for a really long time. And I'm like, guys, write it and get it done. And then like the 5th year into my PhD program, I was like, oh, girl, them comeuppance is bad. Like bad. I was eating my words. I was like, I'm going to be lucky if I get out of here in 6 or 7 years, much less like 4 or 5. And it was a rough go. And I know why it takes so much to push through. And I had to move away too. So at George Mason, it's only like 45 minutes from DC. And for college students, like that is a phenomenal place to live. Mason's one of the coolest campuses ever. But when you're a graduate student and your coursework ends, it's like, oh, I'd like to save a lot of money and not live this close to DC. Because I was living in Loudoun County, which is the richest county in the United States. Yeah. And I felt that money. And so we actually decided to move back to Mississippi because financially I was like having to work 2 or 3 jobs to pay rent. And I wasn't putting that effort into my dissertation. So we decided to move. So at least in my cohort, that was kind of the experience is once you did comps, you were gone. Or at least when the assistantships ended, you got out just because, man, that's a rough place to live on a graduate stipend, which is already, not phenomenal, but
not great.
Right.
Not great to begin with. So, so we came back to Mississippi.
That was a good move.
That is a really good move.
What dissertation did you do, Stephanie? And then Megan, I'll ask the same question so people know your background on that.
Oh, so you want to hear a little bit? You want my elevator?
What's your elevator and all that?
Elevator's how? All right, I've been working this way now.
Not if you're sick of talking about it or anything.
No, it's great. So I study loyalism in Virginia during the Revolutionary War. The name of my dissertation was, I love it, As I Glory in the Name of Tory, which was a direct quote from a Virginia Gazette. It was an intercepted letter from a loyalist who had followed Lord Dunmore. But I study basically, I do a grand narrative of loyalism in Virginia during the war, just because that's a huge area that the historiography loves to miss, especially for Virginia. Loyalist studies has kind of come up in popularity, but Virginia still constantly gets ignored because there's this idea that there's a very low population in Virginia. My dissertation refutes that. It says absolutely not. Here's my numbers. Look at all these folks. But I study Black and white loyalism. So I study the Royal Ethiopian Regiment. I also look at the differences in regionalism, so the Tidewater versus the Piedmont versus the backcountry, to try to get an understanding of what exactly loyalism was in the Revolution for Virginia.
Nice. All right, Megan, what's the one that didn't walk away from you?
Oh my God. So this is my first book. It's like feels like it was so long ago. So it told the story of the Okefenokee Swamp in southern Georgia, the cultural history from the kind of the 17th century to 1940. So, super focused.
Yeah, a little broad.
And each chapter, I mean, true to form, if anyone out there knows my work, like pretty much every book is different, but what they share is an interest in kind of unloved landscapes, places that people usually are like, oh, I'm not sure I want to go there, right? Like swamps and ruins and deserts. Although now the current project is Yellowstone, where everyone does want to go. But initially it was called Where Hell Bubbles Up. So, you know, they were wary of that particular place. But each chapter was totally different. And this is also part of my kind of method too, is that each chapter is its own exciting new adventure into a different field. So the dissertation looked at Indigenous peoples in the Seminole Wars. It looked at fugitive slaves running through the Okefenokee from Georgia into Florida when it was a free state, and then kind of moved into swampers. So we were just talking earlier about swamp people, into swampers, and then industrialists who were trying to do forestry in the Okefenokee, and then scientists who ultimately came in and thought of it as a space of knowledge production and saved it as a state wildlife refuge. So I mucked around in swamps for my dissertation.
There you go.
That's fun.
I have a question from Brendan Harris, which I think is a great one for right now. If you had to do it all over again, would you?
There
you go, Brendan. Thank you for that question.
Okay, that is. Do you want to go first, Megan? I'll let you. No, you want me to go first? Oh God.
Remember, this influences me too. So come on.
Because God, was this the biggest labor of love and hate? Like, because you don't get a PhD unless you really want to. Like, no one holds something over your head and says you have to get a PhD. Right. And it was something that when I got in the program, I was really excited. But I also went straight from high school to undergrad to master's to PhD. And then after comps, I got the brilliant idea to procreate. So I had a 2-year-old through this whole through the last end of this process, and I got married in my PhD program. So like the whole time, like, and I think that's really difficult. And I've talked about this with some friends before. As a woman in my late 20s, early 30s, like that's a huge life shift in a woman's life, because you're starting to hit the point, do I want to have kids? Do I want to get married? And I still need to write this big thesis. And I decided I can do it all. And I did. But it was painful and it hurt and it was crazy. And now that it's over, I'm glad I did it and I would do it again. But if you would have asked me that question before the big doctor was in front of my name, I would have said, hell no. But now I have my reward, so I feel very differently. But I've, PhD programs are wonderful and terrible at the same time. And there's a lot of people I think that will agree with that.
How about you, Megan?
I'm going to say no.
And why now?
Well, I think because, and this is what I always talk about when I talk to, I go to schools to talk to grad students, and we talk about, okay, well, the job market situation is so hideous,
right?
That you need to start thinking pretty early on about what are the kinds of things that you actually like doing. Like, what is your favorite thing about this life and about this work? Is it the teaching? Is it the researching? Is it the advising? Is it the writing? Is it just kind of being on the college campus and being in that kind of mode? What is it that you like most to do? And for most people, that's a pretty clear thing. Like you're like, oh yeah, it's this. Like this is the one. If I had to choose what I could spend all my time doing, this is what it would be. And then usually I say, okay, well then start there, right? So if it's research, then what other opportunities are there in research? Like if it's teaching, what other kinds of teaching could you do? For me, the answer to that question was writing. So if I had to do it all over again, it would actually go all the way back to undergrad, where I did not get particularly good advising. So I didn't get anyone. I was sort of hell-bent on high school teaching, and which is what I did for 2 years after I graduated, before I went to grad school. And no one tried to talk me out of that. No one said, well, let's look at your skills. Like, what is your actual skill set? Like, what could you actually do? Like, so if I had to go back and do it all over again, I think I would, in college, I would have moved to New York and like either done a journalism program or like actually tried to start like actually really writing for a living in whatever way I could have done it kind of back then.
That's so cool though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it would be different because I would be a different writer. I mean, I'm definitely the writer I am right now because I went through the PhD and because I wrote the dissertation and have been kind of in that academic milieu. Like, it's definitely given me kind of a sense of myself as a historian first and then a writer. And definitely when I published Three Cornered War, Scribner was very excited that I had the PhD because I wasn't particularly well known in the sort of trade world, the PhD helps them to sort of establish my street cred.
That's awesome.
That's one thing I've been wondering, Megan, that I thought would be interesting to bring up tonight was the fact that your transition from university press to trade from the books and the differences in that, because a lot of people don't realize that there are differences in those, and a lot of people don't understand the publication world in general. I mean, I would love to be published someday, but I'm the first generation to go to university, period. So it's like I'm trying to figure out the water, and there are people in the comment section and that follow all of us in whatever we do who don't know how that works. Right. And I don't mean to give out the overall thing, but there is definitely a difference between the university presses and the trade world. And since you've just experienced that with Three Cornered War, I wondered if you could go over that for a minute here about those differences.
Yeah.
What you experienced.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, first, the process part of it is very similar. I mean, you write the book, you submit it to an editor. The only thing that the trade presses don't do is they do not send it out to readers. So it's a much faster process because they don't do that, because you're not waiting for 6 to 8 months for someone else to like give you feedback, and you don't have to then do that. The only person who really matters is the editor. So the editor will read it and give you feedback. But I felt a little bit uncomfortable with that. So I actually hired an outside reader, a scholar who would give me like good granular comments, but also big comments on the draft of the manuscript. So I took that money from part of the advance that the trade press gave me. That's another difference. Trade presses do give advances.
That's nice.
University presses can, whether they will, is another question. You have to kind of negotiate that a little bit. But they can do that. But trade presses, it's that standard. Like, they pay you to write the book, or they pay you for the book that is already written. So that's great. But the process is very similar. Once it gets in the editor's hands, when it goes through, from that point on, it goes to copy editing. People start sending you stuff. You have to do maps. You do the bibliography and the index. Like, all of that kind of works in the same way. But the other major difference is that trade presses, instead of just saying, okay, you're done, yay, here's when the book will be published, enjoy, trade presses have a big run up. So they start sending out advanced review copies to all kinds of people, and to, you got one of those, John.
I got one. I got one.
And so they send them to podcasters, they send them to influencers, they send them to reviewers. And what they want is advanced press.
Right.
So the whole sort of thing that we have in academia, where the review of your book will come out 2 years after the book is published, is insane to trade presses. They're like, that doesn't do us any good. They want reviews to come out within 6 weeks of the book's publication.
Wow. So
there's a much stronger kind of push in advance of the book with the trade presses. And then, but really, I mean, that's just all process stuff. The real difference is that trade presses want books that make arguments, but tell stories. And so you're not really ever going to see a trade press publishing a book that is structured in the way that academics usually structure books, which is, you know, an introduction, 5 thematic chapters, and a conclusion, right?
Yeah.
They want it to be a page turner. As my editor put it, she's like, I don't want anything stopping me from turning pages.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there are no images in text. There are no footnotes. Like, it's all, and it, like, she wants you to read that history book as if it were a novel, which is a different way of thinking about how we structure our work. And it was super fun to do. After writing 2 academic books, it was really fun to kind of make that change and write differently about the past.
Stephanie.
Go ahead.
I
was going to comment on that. Has to be so gratifying, though, because one of the things that I've always, because, you know, in academia with academic presses, those are phenomenal, but those are the books that are less likely to end up on a Barnes and Noble shelf. So one of the things that I've always wanted to do as a historian is reach out to general audiences and communities, because I always feel like historians, that's kind of what we don't do enough of sometimes. Although I've noticed lately with the newest group of historians, like Gen X and up, are a lot more community oriented. But at the same time, that has to be so gratifying to know that you're putting something on a bookshelf that is accessible to all, and you're educating, you know, you're spending more time educating in something that's not going to be read as much. And so is that something that's exciting for you? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I get emails from readers who are just general readers who love history, which is fantastic. And they just, you know, they reach out to me through my website and they're just like, hey, I just read your book. I just wanted to let you know I really enjoyed it. That's
so cool.
And I'm like, hey, and I'm like, that's better than any review, in, you know, the Journal of American History. Don't tell them that.
They're not watching. It's okay. They're not watching. They're not watching.
Please. Yeah. But, you know, that's really gratifying to me that people, you want them to learn something new. Yeah. With your loyalists, you want them to come away from your book, being like, oh, all right, that's the deal with those guys. And that's those women. And those.
They weren't hurting people in churches. What?
Yeah. You know, you want them to learn something new, but you also want them to, at least I want them to have a really good reading experience. And I think that historians are pretty good, actually. You know, we get a lot of flack for using jargon and whatever, and I actually don't think we do all that much of that. But it's the structure of the thing that matters, right? You really, in some ways it's, you know, because I'm trained as an academic also. So when I'm reading books that are written in that academic structure, you know, it's very pleasing. You're like, okay, this chapter is about this. And you read it and then you're done. And then you move on and you can sort of take it in little chunks. But most of the time, there's nothing propelling you forward, except if you have an interest in the topic or you need it for your comps or you need it for the research that you're doing or whatever. So that was part of the goal, was to give the reader a really good reading experience. And I think that's something that historians, you know, really should be looking to more. And, you know, that's going to need to come, I think, from the top. I think that that people who already have tenure track and tenure jobs, and are training graduate students, need to allow graduate students to experiment more with form.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Because I think that, it would just be really cool. I'm always thinking about what crazy zany way could you write, you know, a history. You know, I thought about writing a series of letters, if it were an epistolary novel, but in history form, who would you write your letters to? And how would you even create something like that? That just seems awesome. But I love thinking about that. How would you actually do that? How would that actually work? Because I think readers, anyone who's interested in history, you know, everybody loves a good story. Everyone loves great ideas. But I think they love stories more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as almost like a graphic novel way of doing it.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of interesting. Only it's not a novel. It's a, you know, work of nonfiction, but in a different kind of a format. And I always thought that'd be kind of cool, but I'm kind of eccentric. So
what?
A little?
Yeah. I love you, John.
Yeah.
You know, I'll try anything once with the field. Do you want to try?
That's right.
My favorite.
Right. I mean, Ari Tillman did the graphic history of the Civil War, which was
yes, that's right.
Yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
I got a great question from the audience, Nathan Provost.
Hey, Nathan.
What historical character do you relate most to?
That's oh God, this is
think about that one. That's fantastic.
Megan, you want to go first on this one?
Please tell me, Stephanie, yours is going to be a loyalist.
Oh, it's not. The sad part is it's not. Oh my God, it's the complete opposite. And John's not going to be shocked, and anyone else who's listened to me on the last 10 things I've done with John.
I already know where this is going.
John, I am 100% John Adams. I'm short. John Adams. I'm sure. Now I am the positive John Adams. I would not be as morose as John Adams, but I'm short. I can be very loud and not give up on getting my point across. And I have been called obnoxious in my day. So that's up there too. But I think that John Adams is kind of what got me into American history in the first place, because that's when I was an undergrad is when the HBO miniseries came out and all that stuff. And I think that's what made me gravitate the most is I saw myself in John Adams, because also throughout graduate school, throughout my entire life, throughout high school, I was always in the top, but I was never the top. So you know how Washington, he always had this chip on his shoulder about being replaced by Franklin and Washington and Jefferson. And he was always he was in the line, but he was never the top. And that's kind of who I have always been. And the reason why, I've always been the top of my game, but I've never been George Washington. And so I always just watching John struggle, through reading his different documents of why can't I be number one, damn it, that's actually something that forced me through the PhD program. Is I was like, dadgummit, I'm gonna finish this thing because John would finish it because we're gonna be George Washington, dadgummit. So I always just kind of identified with his angst, and I identified with his loudness, as you can
tell.
I like it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't even think I can match that. I don't think I can, because no single person is coming to mind. It would definitely be a troublemaker. Whoever the historical troublemakers are, I would probably, if I had lived in the Puritan world, I probably would have been hanged as a witch.
Love it.
Not because I was out dancing or misunderstood or just weirdly powerful landowner, but because I was an actual witch. With actual magical power.
Would you be hanged or pressed?
Go pressed to death. More weight.
Yeah, add more.
Yeah. I think I would have sort of taken perverse pleasure in the weighted death, because I would have boom, bring it. I have a very fat heart.
I like it.
Keep going.
I like it.
Yeah, I think this has always been my argument about the Salem witchcraft trials, is that no one ever talks about the fact that there were probably witches.
Yep. My first historiography class was a Salem witch trials class, which was one of the best classes I've ever taken. Because if you're going to learn what historiography is, Salem witch trials is the way to go, because that's kind of everybody's hobby topic, because it's so cool.
Yeah.
And there was a book, oh God, I know his first name was Bernard. I can't remember his last name was, but he was actually an English professor, not a history professor. His question was, he was like, okay, there's two options here. Either the girls were lying or they actually had pens in their hands. Yeah. But no one ever talks about the process. And I loved that. What's going on?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the actual witches of the past. That's my answer.
Right.
They're my favorite.
Nice. Nice. I like it. And that's why you're on the first episode of this, because you fit in. It's fine. It's great. It's great. For those thinking of mine, it's probably going to be Grant. Grant would be mine. Alcoholic, never close to his father. And he's underestimated a lot, but he's quiet.
True.
And he's determined. He's I'm going to do this. I think my favorite quote about him was where he always had the look on his face like he was going to put his head through a wall and was determined to do it. And I love that quote because it's like, you know, I love that just determination to do something, but you don't have to tell everybody.
Right.
You just.
Well, I love that. I could see you like Grant, like apparently when he was president, he would just like wave off his security and just go walking around.
Oh yeah.
Smoking his cigar, just like
hanging out in the hotel lobby.
Just like walking around, thinking his thoughts. And I was like, that's so great.
Yeah. I mean, what are they going to do to him that hasn't already been tried to be done? He's survived the Civil War. You know, he was almost assassinated. He didn't go to Ford's that night.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Yeah. You know, really.
Well, and he was just, I also love that like his response to being elected president was just like, well,
okay.
I must have been elected. Like,
yeah, didn't expect that, but all right.
Yeah. I love it.
That's why I have to go move into the White House.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically the way.
And Grant. I like that. Sounds like a great podcast.
That's great.
Grant, John Adams, and a witch walk into a bar.
Oh, see? This is why we have over 40 people watching us right now, because it works.
The witches would have just a ton of fun with those two.
Oh, yeah.
Say that.
Oh, yeah.
Let me just
That's those are great choices. I love those choices. Carly actually said about your witch comment, are you really living life if you wouldn't be tried as a witch in the past? Which love that.
That's very
cool.
I mean, come on.
Carly.
That's so true.
You are part of our girl gang.
Carly's coming.
Yes.
I appreciate that. I embrace that. Stephanie and I will take you out in the next conference.
There you go.
Yeah.
She can be on our show. Yeah. Where we're going to take her the history.
Yeah. That's right. The History Channel.
Yeah.
Take her over.
Oh my God.
Oh, it'd be great. You gotta hang out at SMH together.
I know. So I have actually auditioned for the History Channel.
Shut up.
Really?
No, you oh my God.
All right, we need
I have to know
several times. And it was the most hilarious. So first, my first experience with the History Channel was I was invited to a pitch meeting with other historians to pitch stuff to a like big person at like History Channel A&E.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that the guy we were pitching was the guy who created Duck Dynasty.
Oh my God. That went well.
And I was like, and it was,
oh my God.
It was the most amusing because there was some hardcore. I'm not even going to tell you who was in that room because it's too embarrassing for them. Because they were just like hardcore historians who were pretty charming interpersonally, but they never watched any popular television or never, so they were like, the show that I think you should do is like this thing with this. And like, I was sitting right next to the A&E guy and he very much had a very short attention span. And so when someone would start pitching, he would have his phone like face down. And the minute he got bored, he'd look at his phone.
Yep, that's a sign.
And I would just be like,
yep.
That.
And I was like last.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. So I pitched like, well, one of the things I pitched actually was a show a little bit like this. With the name of another show that Matt Gabriel started, Drinking with Historians, which I pitched actually as a studio show in which we would have an actual bar cart and we would make a sort of themed cocktail to drink.
And they didn't buy this?
And then just chat. And they were just like, interview shows? I don't know. And then I was like, or you could have a panel show, or you could have a travel show where people are going to like the hardest to get to historical destinations. So it would involve like rappelling and jumping out of helicopters.
And none of these like took.
Keep giving me ideas, Megan.
They were like, I mean, I did feel somewhat sort of successful and triumphant in the fact that he didn't look at his phone while I was pitching these rapid fire, because I was like, don't turn on the phone, don't turn on.
Right.
Yeah. But then they did like a couple, I don't even know when this was, 3 years ago maybe, they did have an idea for a panel show. And so they sent out, I don't know if you guys saw this, they did send out a like call for auditions. And I made it like to the final round. So there's like an audition tape, which has a more specific name that I can, like, I don't know if it's like your reel or like whatever that's out there somewhere with me doing, I don't even know what.
We got to find this.
Yeah. Amazing. Crazy. But that was the one where I got these very specific instructions where they were like, don't wear stripes, you know, like, and for women, wear lipstick, like blah, 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 like all this stuff about how you know, now we kind of think about, now that we're on Zoom all the time, everyone's thinking about all of their surroundings. Mm-hmm. But back then they were, you know, this was like a totally new thing. So we got a very long list of instructions about like how to appear. Wow. But I had to actually, it was kind of a mini op-ed sort of thing. So they wanted you to pitch current events that had historical resonance. So, and you had to talk about them in the audition. You had to be like, well, what people don't know is that blah, blah, blah. And you had to be, and the most amazing, and they tell you, like, I would say, even with the introduction, I'd be like, well, I'm Megan Kate Nelson. I'm from Lincoln, Massachusetts. And they'd be like, we're going to stop you there. And they're like, let's punch that up. Like, just punch it up. And I'd just be like, oh.
All right.
And so I'd be like, hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
And
welcome to the show.
It's like you're Vanna White.
Hello. Welcome
to history.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. But I will say this, that after that whole experience, I have such respect for those people you see on the news who do those like super short segments where they're like, and then blah, 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 and they are no script, no nothing. It is so hard to do even like the shortest sentence with nothing to look at and totally off the cuff and to sound normal and to not say and like it was hilarious.
That is amazing.
Wow.
I'm so impressed and excited.
Well, but they didn't. So what's crazy is that they didn't, like, I knew two of the other people who were finalists for that show. Because Small World.
So where's the show? Did they stop it?
Yeah, it did not get greenlit.
Wow.
Yeah.
You gotta find that tape. We're gonna run that at SMH.
Oh, Lord.
The SMH after
We
party.
probably had too much history for the History Channel. So
Yeah, probably.
it wasn't what they were trying to tell.
I know. Although I think they could, you know, maybe everything is changing. Maybe they'll decide they want to do something like that.
Well, because like people like John right now are so successful and they have such huge audiences. Yeah, you, John. Thank you, John. You may actually have a hand in changing the, you know, History Channel one day. Like I keep waiting for someone to contact John and say, hey, you want to do this for real? Like do it all the time. Like let's do 12 episode season. Let's go. So
yeah, the problem is my weakness is I can't read a script. I have to do everything off the cuff.
Well, then that's a part of
that's my thing. Like I just recorded the podcast for tomorrow, and I riffed for 45 minutes without notes.
Oh, that's a rare time.
That's the way I have to do it, because if you gave me a sheet of paper, and friends have done this who do other digital history projects, they're like, can you read these lines? And immediately my brain goes, no, you're not going to read those lines. If you give me 3 lines to read, just give me 3 and then wait 5 minutes, I won't remember them.
Yeah.
But if you're like, if you say something to me, I can repeat it like 5 minutes later or something to that effect. But my brain doesn't compute reading lines. My brain computes, we're going to do this and we're going to talk about this. And my brain goes, all right, let's go. That's how I'm wired. So I'm wired for, what are those stand-up comedians who like come up with stuff off the cuff? They get an object and they do something. that's like me. It's like I would love to have a show like a YouTube show or something like that, where you pull out a primary source document and you have to talk about it for like 5 minutes straight without stopping.
These are your TikTok videos. This is your TikTok.
Yeah, this is my thing where it's like, give me an object and I will talk about it for 2 minutes. Boom, go. That's the way I like to do it.
The most popular shows right now are the unscripted ones. Like, I think you have the market for it, especially the unscripted, especially like travel shows and stuff. I'm still shocked no one's hit you up for like a history travel show. And by the way, if you ever get pegged for this, if you ever get pegged for this, you are dragging me with you, John. Me and I are coming. We're going on that trip.
Thank you, David. Whose history is it anyway?
Okay, you need to build your TikTok empire by doing that. I mean, because people really do. They're like, you just take something out of the comments, or like if you do it just live and be like, okay, American Revolution, 1 minute, go.
Right.
Like, and you do it.
Yeah, because I've had to, because of the years of doing historical interpretation and talking about objects, and there were times where I did it. I was under contract to do it with the Army Heritage and Education Center in Carlisle. And they would say, okay, tomorrow you have to come in First World War stuff. So you'd show up in First World War stuff, but you didn't know the age group until you got there. And I would have to ask, okay, what class is coming? And they'd be like, oh, they're fifth graders. And so in your head, you got to be like, okay, you got to go to the script for fifth graders.
Yeah.
And then the next day, they're like, come in Second World War stuff, and you go in Second World War stuff, and then you find out they're ninth graders, and then you go to the ninth grade script. And that's the way my brain started to operate, was I'll just go off the cuff and we'll do it.
But that's beautiful. Like that, I think that's so much more marketable to me than being able to read a script. Yeah, that's so much better.
Okay, this is the beginning of your TikTok empire, and Stephanie and I will promote you.
Okay.
I just want to get a TikTok.
Amplify your videos.
Yes.
No, because seriously, I haven't seen anything out there like this. Like, that would be amazing. Yeah. Like, if you just like riffed for like a minute on various historical topics, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Comment thumbs up if you would watch John on TikTok. Comment thumbs up if you would watch John on TikTok.
Let me know in the comments.
Yeah.
And it would be cool to put out a poll and be like, what do you want me to talk about on my next TikTok?
Yeah.
Boom. Go.
TikTok. I mean, this is just like the perfect extension of the tattooed historian empire. Like, I mean, it's just like,
empire.
Yep. Yeah. At this point, yes.
I need to have a flag now, apparently, so we can plant the flag.
Oh boy.
We'll make you one. It'll be good.
But I'll tell you what, I had 2 days ago, I had my second case of imposter syndrome as a historian. And that was when I got the email asking me if I would co-lead the tour for the CWI summer conference next year.
Oh, right. Yes.
And for half a day, all I could think of was the people who have been waiting for years to be able to do something at like CWI or wherever it may be. And it's like, I just jump in, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like an imposter syndrome thing where it's like, I don't have the magazine articles. I don't have the books. All I have is what we do digitally. And that's what I've got. Then the one asset has been, I've had people, some in these comments here, who have said, well, now I have to come to CWI next year, or wow, now I really want to be there, or whatever else, which has been really gratifying and been like tamping down that imposter syndrome. But it's one of those things where it's kind of like, you start to doubt yourself after a while, because there's people who have been in line longer than you have. And it kind of seems like sometimes it's cutting in line, but it's an honor to be asked. Don't get me wrong. It's just that, man, that was a real shock, And
that's amazing. Well, and that's just a tribute to your skills. I mean, and this is what it is. It's like, what is your skill set, and then like what is it that you most enjoy? Because there are lots of historians who have PhDs and whatever who have written multiple books who cannot do what you do, John. They can't do it. They're like, all they can really do is kind of go in and like lecture from notes and, lead discussions in seminar. It would terrify them to be on the battlefield and not know who they're about to talk to and have that like responsibility to like take people through that. They would freak out. So like everybody, and I understand imposter syndrome, but also like they wouldn't have asked you if you were not the best at what you do.
Okay, John, Megan Kate Nelson just told you you're awesome. So if that doesn't defeat your imposter syndrome.
Oh no, it does.
I don't.
Thank you.
I understand. I mean, that's a hard like thing. Like, you will probably that will never be defeated because everybody has it. There's always these moments where you're like, oh God, what am I doing?
Right.
What have I done?
Right. How do I get into this?
Is anyone going to like it? Like,
yeah.
Does this even make sense? Like, what am I going to do if people are like, no, you're wrong, this sort of thing. But this kind of goes to what I was saying before about like, what is it that you like to do the most and what are your skills? Like, what are you the best at? But I think before we move on, we need to talk about this adorable doggy.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up too, because he received a promotion.
Hello.
He's perfect. He's the sweet. This is, for people who do not know, Dr. Sir Lord General Bunker Hill, Washington, Adam Seal Walters, Esquire the Third. His name is Bunker. So he goes by Bunker. How many historians name
Doctor?
I don't know how he looks in the mirror every day with a name like that. Like it's hard. It's a hard life. But how many historians actually have named their pets after battles or historical figures, or like do we have normal pet names?
You know Lindsay Travinsky, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You know her? So she has Q. She has Don Quincy Dog Adams.
Oh,
so I keep saying I want to adapt because they're about to start shutting down all the Greyhound racing tracks in like Alabama and Florida. I don't know if they've already started doing that or if it's like coming up, but I really want to get to adopt 2 Greyhounds, and we're going to name them Lexington and Concord. So we'll have Lexington, and Connie, and Bunker.
That's awesome.
Oh my God. Look at this sweet dog. He loves being on camera.
He does.
He's about to turn 11, so him's an old boy, and he's my heart. So
I remember when I interviewed you on the podcast, he was sleeping at my feet. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I have a funny side story about him. So the other day, I was in a meeting with my advisor like the week before defense, and Bunker always lays by my feet everywhere I go. Like pugs are true like shadow dogs, and he's by my feet, and I'm talking to my advisor about defense coming up, and all of a sudden he just rips out the loudest toot ever, and I'm so humiliated because I didn't know whether I should address it and be like, that wasn't me. That or just ignore and hope that she didn't hear it. And I was like, oh God, Bunker, no. But yeah, Bunker is very popular in Colonial Williamsburg. Like he's actually known. He goes with us to Williamsburg all the time. And the Duke of Gloucester Street's actually very dog friendly. So he's been to about as many historical sites as I have. So we should have a show. Obviously.
You should have a show. This is what you could pitch to History Channel.
There you go.
History dog.
Again, history. Yeah.
Yeah. Past pup. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. He's already more entertaining than half of the history panels I've ever witnessed in my life.
Oh.
Just
yeah.
Not yours, Megan. That was when I first saw Megan. Was 2013. That was the first conference I ever attended. Was
it?
Yeah, the Future of the Civil War conference at Gettysburg College.
At Gettysburg.
Yeah, and like I forget when that was. I forget what month it was. It was in 2013 because it was the 150th, and everyone was freaking out like, what's going to happen to Civil War history after the 150ths are over? Right. And little did we know that it's going to be more relevant now than ever. But that was the first time I ever met you and it was a panel discussion. I forget who was on the panel with you. That was the first time I think I ever met Kevin Levin was there too.
Yeah. Were we talking about environmental history on the panel?
Yes.
Okay. So
because I came up to you and I said, I'm from Chambersburg. And you're like, oh, yeah, you're from where the intro to my book talks about. Or
that's right.
At the time.
Let's burn that down.
Yes. Yes, it was very low. Now we have a market day every year to celebrate the burning of our town because that's the American way to do it. You just have a market day. And instead of worrying about the history, it's Old Market Day. We don't know why we're having it, but it's because of the burning of the town.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time there. And I remember when Stephanie had me at her class at George Mason.
Oh.
And that was a wild day.
Oh,
that was the first time I was ever in front of a class before. I'd never been in front of a class.
And he did so well. Like, oh my gosh. So it was a digital humanities class. And I had students who were history majors, a lot who had nothing to do with the humanities. And he came in to talk about podcasting. And I was just, when he left, the students just freaked out at how candid he was. Like they felt like they could ask him anything and he would, and like they loved it. Like they were freaked out. So now anytime I teach a class with podcasting, unfortunately we had to cancel last semester because last semester COVID hit right when John was supposed to Zoom in anyway. So, but next time when I teach, he'll be there again.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I had fun that day. And I love working with the students, and that's when I really realized what I wanted to do. Like Megan, you said earlier about basically self-awareness. You got to know what you want to do if you want to go on to pursue a PhD or whatever it may be. And that was when I was really like, hey, I really enjoy this. You know,
you did so good. Oh, so it was me. I inspired you, John, by coming in my class. So I get to take credit for this.
Yeah, you planted the seed of being like, I need to join the dark side here, and I need to work with this.
Teaching in the acknowledgements.
I know. I better be in the acknowledgements. Teaching, honestly, is one of the main reasons why I did want to get, because usually it's the opposite. Folks want it for the research because they want to be a researcher. I wanted it to teach. I grew up with one teacher. One of my parents was a high school teacher. The other was a middle school / lower elementary. She kind of shifted every now and then. But I was actually in their classes because I went to a community so small that I actually had my parents as teachers multiple times, which was a lot of fun. And both of my parents were incredible lecturers, and I almost decided to just go into K through 12 education, but I could not deal with the parents, man. I was like, absolutely not. I want to teach where FERPA protects me. I don't have to handle parents. So I literally did the PhD so I could teach, but I didn't have to deal with your mama when you didn't get what you wanted. So that's, that was the long way to get a teaching career. Woo.
Well, that's why I wanted to go and coach Little League. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with the parents though. So I want to help the kids. I want to work with the kids, but I don't want to deal with the parents because they're worse than the kids.
Yeah.
I am a parent and I'm terrible. I don't even want to deal with it. No.
I mean you.
No.
My own worst nightmare.
I know. I'm my own worst nightmare. Yeah. So I'm like, I get
it. We have Sharita in large
hey, Sharita.
Perhaps. What are y'all's plans for the future? More books?
Mine is
yeah, so I'm about to write the final chapter of part 1 of my next book.
Nice.
So I'll be halfway done, which is good because it's due in April. Yeah, I need to send me all your writing mojo, any writing fast sort of vibes you've got, send them to me. Yeah, so I am currently writing a book that tells the story of the first scientific survey to Yellowstone in 1871, which led to the Yellowstone Act of 72, which created the first national park in the world. And, people have told this story before, but I'm telling it in the context of Reconstruction. So this is a story of federal power, of regional division, and like the hopes that people had that Yellowstone would bring the country together. So it's been great because the most recent chapter I wrote was the kind of bulk of the survey in Yellowstone. So they saw Yellowstone Falls, and then the Mud Pots, and then the Geyser region, and then Yellowstone Lake, and like all the bit, like basically it was like hit after hit after hit. Like amazing.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had actually traveled there. So I felt like I was, you know, having an out of body experience, which was nice because I had planned to go to Yellowstone to do research and drive around and see everything in person in May. And of course,
Yeah.
axed. So that is the current book. I have an idea for the next book, but I haven't pitched it to my agent yet. And she is usually the first line of kind of reaction. And if she's just like, no, then I have to go back to the drawing board. I'll be like, oh, crap.
Wow.
But yeah, it's so more books definitely in the future. Although, you know, it's hard to think past November at this point. Just because that seems like such a momentous thing. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Stephanie, what about you?
Book. Book. That's what I like. Because, yeah, book, because I'm obligated now. But also, yeah. But also because, like I said before, like defense kind of freaked me out in a way that I expected to be exhausted and want to be done. And I thought I would hate my topic forever because I just had it. And defense kind of served as like this invigorating moment for me because it did go so well. And I had such really good questions and really good feedback. And I've always told people I'm like Tinkerbell. I need applause in order to survive. Like if you're not clapping for me, I'm not doing anything. And so that kind of served as like this, hey, it helped my imposter syndrome is what it helped because it made me feel like I wasn't an idiot and I did actually know what I was talking about. And so it helped with that. And so I'm starting to talk to some presses about getting the book forward, which I'm excited. I actually have a possible book proposal next week to talk about. I know. Like, yeah. So I wanted to jump on that momentum when I felt good about myself and I felt good about my topic. I was too scared that if I rested too much, I wouldn't jump back in it again. So I'm excited because there seems to be a lot of interest in it. And also, so my job right now at Southern Miss is I'm a digital liaison to the humanities. And basically what I do is I help historians and classroom build digital projects, large one. But there is one that's very close to my heart and I've threatened to do for a long time that's going to be on my own time. I am applying for grants for it. So Southern Miss will probably own it. But, you know, I have met with some historians who are working on the Maryland Loyalist claims. They've done a fantastic job having students transcribe it, having them uploaded online. They should in the next couple of weeks go live with that. And I was approached about adding Virginia actually today. And that's something that's a huge deal for me because the public is more interested in this than anything. So especially my United Empire Loyalist Association of Canada folks, like I really think we have an audience that would want to transcribe these documents, help contextualize the era a little bit better, and then also, you know, make it available to the public. That's all I want to do is I want the public to have access to stuff. And that's why I think I shifted into digital humanities because I'm still an academic historian, but I'm really trying to push to make things accessible to everyone. So I'm excited about that. So yay, Virginia Loyalists.
That's awesome.
That's
yay.
Yeah. Yes. Yay, public history.
Yeah.
Yay, public history. And caring about the general public.
Yeah.
Yes.
Accessibility. That's what it's got.
How dare we write for people? Yeah.
Sharing knowledge is caring.
That's right. That's right. And as far as I'm concerned, for the rest of this year, hopefully I'll be getting over the border at some point before the end of the year and ending that drama. I do have plans to, in 2021, I haven't said anything about this yet, but I would like to start the Tattooed Historian for Kids. As well. It's the next generation. So I'm looking at the 8 to 16-year-old bracket and being like, these are the kids who are being picked on in school right now because they love history, they don't love sports or whatever it may be, and we need to make it cool again. So I want to start doing something with that, and I'm in the early stages of building that up because while everyone is focusing on the 50 to 70-year-old block. I'm looking at the next generation and being like, we got to see what we can do with that. So I'm thinking of a more opening and cartoony style to the brand for the kids. So that I'm going to be working on hopefully next year, and see what happens with that. But continuing with the digital history theme, obviously, because literally, if I didn't have what we've all worked on together in the past with the podcasting, the live streams, whatever we've worked on, whatever I worked on with others, if I didn't have that digital history component, I don't think I would have gotten into doctoral candidacy as well, because my CV would have been a lot less robust. I think that seeing what has been built helped me get in to the next phase of the process. And I think that coming from where I've come from, I think I would love to work, reach out with young historians who want to make their mark, because we have such things as National History Day and things like that. And I would love to partner with them in some way to get some more notoriety out to their program and to the kids who put so much effort into documentaries or presentations of some kind that aren't documentaries, to work with them and be able to do something on that front. So hopefully in 2021, the brand for kids will start, and I intend to have numerous kids telling me what apps they're on and what they're using, and then start working on that. That's why we're on Twitch now. That's why I'm on TikTok, because I was told this is where the 14, 18 to 24-year-old bracket is on those apps, and that's where I'm going to go. And because I'm going to reach the next generation and try to be a mentor and a friend. So that's where I'm at, and hopefully be able to come into some classrooms, and do what I do, because I don't have the nice publication houses looking at me yet. So we'll do that instead and get as much enjoyment out.
So. Well, you have a wonderful pool of some pretty phenomenal kids too. So you've got great support.
Yeah. And there's been some kids who have reached out to me online, and I say kids, they're 15, 16 years old. They private message me sometimes, and they're like, I don't fit in. I don't fit into the field. I don't want to be an archivist, and they'll say, I don't want to work in an archive. I want to research, but I don't want to work in an archive. I want to do what you do. And then I realized that maybe there's something here where we need to have a more a shift in some of the programming to more younger audiences, even more younger than they already are sometimes, and catch those, because I started getting into history when I was 9. So if we can catch the 11-year-olds, the 12-year-olds who are really experimenting for the first time with understanding they like history or they like something to that effect, maybe we can make a difference there. Yeah. I know my partner's son is 11, and he's going to be one of my advisors. And so he's a little historian. So he's a mini me. So it's, Megan, we went to a hockey game together. First time I ever met this child, both of her children. And I had to watch him for a little bit, because Kara, my partner, had to take her daughter because she was singing the national anthem and, for the hockey game with her class. So I was watching her son, and he talks to me. He's like, can we talk about President Lincoln? This is the first time I ever met him. This is like the first thing we talk about. And I'm like,
you're like, who?
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, buddy. And then it was, can we talk about President Kennedy? And he was into presidents who were assassinated, because he's like, why were they assassinated? What was going on with that? And so that's when I'm like, we have a different demographic shift going on here, and I need to be looking at it. So when I see opportunity like that, I'm like, let's start branding in a different way for a certain group.
Yeah.
And pulling them in. At the same time, we're still pulling in the historians we're used to pulling in. But now we're getting the next generation. And I think that's where I'm going to be going, because, it's going to be the future. And if we can help them out, we'll see what happens. But I'm willing to make myself into a Muppet if need be to get this done.
Yeah, so. I'm envisioning, in my perfect world, John, you go to graduate school, and for your dissertation, you write like a series of Civil War children's books.
I have actually thought about doing
that. That should be a thing. That should
I've actually thought about also. It's a weird idea, which I'm used to weird ideas. I thought about doing almost like not like a superhero book, but like a, this something to that effect of this traveling, person that goes around and they're like saving artifacts or they're working they're saving documents in the archives. And this is how an archive works. And this is, and doing stuff like that. It sounds dry, but in my head, it's like, I can't describe it.
Like a history detective or like a National Treasure meets Indiana Jones meets.
Oh my God, I can read that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just need an illustrator and we can get to work,
That's what you need is and her sidekick, the Chicago Manual of Style.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, you got to have this shout out to Turabian. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I've always threatened is to dress up like a superhero and call myself Captain Cleo and just walk around, dress my baby up as the Chicago Manual.
Oh my God.
That's gonna be my Halloween costume this year.
Perfect.
That'd be perfect.
Perfect.
But I'm so glad that we got to hang out for a little while this evening, ladies. It's been great.
This was fun. This was so much fun.
We got to do it again.
Wait, I literally dream about conferences. Like I actually dream about conferences, which is both nerdy and sad, but also like amazing because I'm like, look at all my people who I can hug.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was my biggest bummer this year is I had so many drink dates lined up for SMH and then it just came crashing down. So if it's not canceled this year, we're all getting drinks. Yes. And then we can actually do this from the bar, which would be
Well, yeah, we'll actually live stream it.
Live stream it. There you go.
I have the equipment. This is why I want to set up at like SMH to do the interviews like I did for CWI, and then we can have the after party somewhere else and live stream that too. What the heck? Mm-hmm. I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah, the only responsible one because he will actually.
I'm sober. So
he's sober.
Yeah. He's our baby.
He'll just be like, "Woo!" and like go running off, and he'll just be like, "Okay."
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Oh, I'd go over
that. Being the awesome one, while these yahoos run off.
I know. I'll bring the equipment. We'll show the other side of the history field.
That is hilarious. But this was fun, John. Jeez, I always have such a good time on your show.
I know.
Hey, it's
somewhere, anywhere. John is great at this.
Yes.
Well, I guess through what you both have said and through what we've seen in the comments, I think we're going to try to do this again and make this a ongoing thing because people are really enjoying it. And I think too often, we're used to being talked to instead of talked with, and just being like, let's just talk about whatever comes up and hang out for a while. And that's why I appreciate both of you coming on, and we'll get Angela on next time. And
yeah, you guys really missed out. Angela's phenomenal. I know she's done your stuff before, but she's fun.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and now you all know about my sordid History Channel past.
Yes.
You were already interesting, but now it's just like that makes me so happy.
That's right. I'm telling you, it's I'm gonna take that note and put it in the back of my mind for later. It might come up again.
You'll find, I think actually part of it is searchable online because I think I ran across at one point. I was like, are they allowed to do that? And I was like,
I know what I'm doing in the car tonight because I'm actually on my way to Texas. As soon as I get done with this, I'm gonna be like, Megan Nelson, real.
Yeah. Yes. You're gonna have to find out about that.
It won't be pretty.
And remember, when it's with me, it's just all done live. I can't do it.
No record. It's like it never happened.
That's right. We can delete it and it's gone forever. So thank you both for being on. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your evening. And
guys.
Bye, friends.
Thank you so much, everyone, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch.
Coming.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for allowing the Twitch debut to go so well. So we will speak with you all later. Take care, everybody.
All right. Take care. Have a good weekend.